8 years in government. This Prime Minister is out of touch, and Canadians are out of money. And nowhere is that more evident than in the words of the Prime Minister's own top minister from Newfoundland and Labrador, who said he's, quote, sick and tired of people complaining about the cold weather.
Shameful.
Sick and tired of hearing the stories of seniors in his riding calling to complain that his tax is making it impossible for them to heat their homes. Well, if he's sick and tired of hearing about the pain and suffering that his Liberal government is causing after 8 years, why don't they stop causing that pain and suffering? And if he's still sick and tired, why doesn't he get out of the way and let another government step in and stand up for the people who are trying to heat their homes? Maybe this out-of-touch Liberal minister needs to hear more, not less, of the stories of his own constituents. I'm reading an article from the government's own propaganda arm, the CPC, and I quote, diesel home heating fuels see significant price spike in unscheduled adjustment. Quote, diesel and 2 types of home heating oil saw massive price increases Friday. This would be the Friday that just passed, in an unscheduled adjustment by the Public Utilities Board. Now, what is the solution that the Liberal Minister for Newfoundland and Labrador has to these skyrocketing prices? No, not to produce more affordable energy here in our country, even though his province has access to immense offshore reserves that this Prime Minister has discouraged. No, his solution instead is to triple the carbon tax on his own residents. Well, Mr. Speaker, if he's tired of hearing about the cost of home heating now, just wait until he imposes that tax increase. This tax has been particularly painful for those people who are already living in economically depressed parts of this country that are forced to heat with oil and propane, the cost of which is already higher than in other places. And so we see across Northern Ontario, Canadians will be paying drastically increased home heating bills with the support of the NDP in its coalition with the Liberals. We have, for example, the member for Timmins voting to raise home heating bills on his constituents in Timmins, James Bay. An NDP member who was elected to serve his constituents is now serving and bowing before the Liberal Prime Minister in raising taxes on his own constituents. And now, Mr. Speaker, it's not just in oil-heated communities, it's also in places like Hamilton that the suffering is now spreading. Quote, headline from the Hamilton Spectator, what am I going to do? Go cold? Natural gas bill sticker shock triggers anger for inflation-weary Ontario residents. And the NDP member for Hamilton, what's his solution? He wants to triple the carbon tax on hardworking, blue-collar folks in Hamilton. Thankfully, even though they're temporarily stuck with an NDP coalition member as their MP, Conservatives are fighting for the hardworking people of Hamilton and opposing the carbon tax increase. And so let me quote further from the same article. When a nearly $250 natural gas bill arrived in November, Lily Franceschini called for her parents with questions. Her dad's response, get used to it. The North End Hamilton resident said, or keep your house at 20 degrees. Then, December's bill, $353. End quote. Now imagine what January's bill will look like, as it was even colder than December. The bills keep rising and the temperature keeps dropping. So, Madam Speaker, I announce on the floor of the House of Commons today the Conservative Party has launched a nationwide campaign to get the NDP Liberal costly coalition to wake up. This coalition is taxing our people. We've had enough, and so we're launching a campaign to keep the heat on and take the tax off. We will keep the heat on this costly coalition to take the tax off, not just so that heat becomes more affordable, but food. Remember, the carbon tax is actually a tax on the food that we eat. Why? Because when you tax our farmers who produce the food, and you tax the truckers who deliver the food, well, then you tax the food itself. Let me quote the data provided to me by a major mushroom farm just south of here, about a half an hour south of Parliament Hill. The Carleton Mushroom Farm, the unbelievably successful farm. They employ about 100 people. They supply the nation's capital with the mushrooms that we eat. Their natural gas carbon tax bill, $9,000 for the month of July. For the month of July. The bill expected for January, $14,275 for 1 month. Now, Madam Speaker, you think that doesn't get passed on to the consumers? Ultimately, at the end of the day, the farmer has to pay the bill somehow. Now, ultimately, the Carleton mushroom farm will take a hit. They will suffer and probably produce less mushrooms than they otherwise would, which of course means we import more mushrooms from foreign polluting jurisdictions.